Hello, scholars. Welcome to the third installment of Comic Book Club. Today we are going to focus on two things. The future of comics, just looking at how they've evolved and where they're going and making predictions about what the future of comics holds. And we're going to slow down on just a couple tutorial videos on how to draw comic book characters and comics in general. All right. The first article, we're not going to slow down and read it together, but if you're interested, like the other PowerPoints, it's on the Google site, and you can click on this article, and this is just talking about what's happening currently with comic book stores and how it might change the future of comic books. So if you're interested, feel free to read that one, and you can tell me how the comic book industry is changing. The next is a video from the magazine known as The Verge. So let's go ahead and watch this. It's on the digital age of comics, the future of comics.
Comics. You might not be aware of it, but you are constantly surrounded by comics. Whether it's choking hazard sign in a restaurant or the IKEA instructions you're trying to decipher, at one point or another in your life, you've read a comic. Ever since Action Comics introduced the world to Superman in 1938, modern comics have been a huge driver of art and culture. What used to be ridiculed and cast aside has now become a modern-day cultural phenomenon, generating billions of dollars. Comics have come a long way, and thanks to new digital platforms, comics are more accessible than ever.
It really feels like we're in this kind of weird comic renaissance. There's just more of everything.
Yeah, there's so much diversity. Small publishers are doing really well.
Small publishers, big publishers seem to be a little more organized. I mean, independents now can just go out and do it and just publish themselves. But I don't even know where to start anymore. Where do we begin with comics?
When I started out, I could just like go and imagine the entire world of comics, you know, in 1984. I could just see it in my head. You can't do that anymore. It's too big.
This is Scott McCloud. He's a major figure in comics theory. You may recognize him more like this. In 1993, he created the seminal comic book Understanding Comics. It was a comic book treatise of sorts, illustrating how comics leverage many different disciplines, from semiotics to sequential art. He's kind of a go-to guy for anything comics.
You know, the comics industry has changed even since the last book, even since 2006. So since 1993, it's a completely new industry. 6 months after Understanding Comics came out in 93, the first graphical web browser came out. Web comics came just crashing into our art form and completely changed the rules. Meanwhile, a graphic novels movement finally takes hold, and that was a tremendous change. You also saw the influx of manga and a lot of storytelling techniques that I think could be tremendously valuable in comic storytelling. So these are 4 massive changes in comics culture. The result is we have this tremendous biodiversity of the comics that are out there, of the kinds of subjects that people can talk about in comics, of the people making comics. We're seeing more diversity there, and we're seeing a tremendous diversity of formats and technologies. This is how you have a healthy art form. You want an art form that's so diverse that you can't see from one end of it to another.
It's also diversity in terms of format too, especially with digital comics right now, because they can think beyond just the page convention.
Right. People are doing things that are really innovative in digital comics. For instance, one really great example that I can think of is Symbolia.
Symbolia was an interactive comics journalism magazine that was published on iPad and through PDF.
This is Joyce Rice. She was the creative director of Symbolia. She knows a lot about digital comics, how you make them, and what they can do. And she really believes that they can enhance the comics reading experience, if you make them right.
One of my favorite inspirations for interactive comics actually is Raw Magazine, which was a magazine that was printed in the 80s and 90s. They would include like sound discs and bubble gum and like all of these different kinds of interactive things in their printed magazines. And so I look at raw and I'm like, what can we do on the computer that's totally different?
Symbolia deals in nonfiction, and that sometimes means dealing with data. So in this case, they combined a map graphic into a single panel thanks to a GIF. If you wanted to do that in print, you need a bunch of additional panels. Now over here, we're shown a street. By tapping on this icon, you can hear what that environment sounded like. The audio and visual combination lets you enter that landscape in a way that couldn't be possible in print.
So digital comics aren't just changing the way that we read comics, they're also changing the way that we buy them. You know, there's still a surprising number of apps like actually let you read and purchase comics. There's Marvel Unlimited, for example.
There's Dark Horse, and of course, there's Comixology. There are tons of digital comics reading apps, but Comixology is my app of choice. It's less buggy than most, and it sports a larger selection than any other digital comics store. To read a book on your tablet or phone, all you have to do is buy it in the online store, and then you're off. But Comixology is more than a store. The company also pioneered a comics reading interface called Guided View.
The origins of Guided View is that we needed a cheap way to present a portrait-style image onto a smaller screen on a device. At the start, everybody was just cutting out panels in Photoshop. So huge overhead, right? You got to get a bunch of people sitting in front of Photoshop, cutting out panels into 440 by 640, the iPhone size, and we're making slideshows. We felt like the rhythm of the story was gone, the feeling of the page was gone, the layout of the page was gone, but at the same time, you're talking about a very small device. So we had two goals. One, make it very readable, so that the text was readable without a lot of pinching and zooming, because that's a pain. Two, we wanted the whole page there. So the idea of Guided View came in. We basically show you chunks of the page, one screen at a time, but do it in a way that where we're telling a story. So we're not simply just moving around the page, we're actually going with the flow of the story, and then sometimes we'll actually crop out unnecessary parts of the artwork because they're not integral to what the story is. And then one of the nice offsets of this is that, you know, we actually invented a new way of telling stories, which is Guided View Native, which was completely done by accident. What happens is when you go from panel to panel, it slides, but when you go from page to page, there's a crossfade. And so we had a lot of people see that and say, I want to create stories in this manner.
It seems like there's a lot of possibilities with Guided View Native, but it really just makes you think of the device that you're using a lot more than maybe you should be, because you're constantly tapping the screen and waiting for bubbles to appear.
And it also comes down to authorial intent. Like people, a lot of these comics were written with the page in mind. Like that's something to keep in mind, especially, for example, Scott McCloud, who made a big deal with the sculptor, and being something you should, first and foremost, read on paper.
This thing was in every way designed to take advantage of what print can do in full knowledge and awareness of print's limitations. You know, I have one moment where my protagonist early in the book is shown death. You know, with a little help from a supernatural entity, he's able to understand what death is, something that all of us maybe understand on some level, but you need a little help to really understand. Some people have described understanding death as like seeing the back of your own eyeball. The idea that consciousness can't even conceive of the absence of itself. You know, so and the way I choose to show it in the book is 2 blank pages. The idea of putting that on an iPad and having people think that that it's malfunctioning, you know, I mean, what do you do? It's like it's designed for print. It exists in print. It's a printed artifact. You know, paper without ink.
With that said, I mean, paper is always going to be beautiful, and I think this is a great constriction for people to kind of experiment with format, but digital is a way to expand the entire audience.
Yeah, more people are reading comic books because of the digital format. I think that, you know, people who don't live close to a comic book store have more access to comics in general, and then it also just, you know, for people who maybe wouldn't feel comfortable going to a comic book store as, you know, a newbie, I think that it allows them to explore a world and you know, gain some knowledge before having to step into a comic book store. And honestly, anything that brings more people to comic books, there's nothing wrong with that.
All right. So I thought that was a really great video talking about the future of comics. just to give a synopsis of the article in case you don't want to read it but just want to know the highlights of it. Really, the article is talking about how comic book shops are kind of shutting down. They're not getting as much money as they used to, and how in order to survive, the comic book industry, meaning businesses that make comic books for a living, they're starting to have to think about how do they get their comic books in front of people through direct shipping like Amazon or through their own postal service to get the comic book directly into the hands of the buyer. And then also the use of digital, which is something that I think The Verge magazine does such a great job talking about. You know, especially now in the time of COVID, we are seeing so many more people use the online comic book websites to access new comic books, to be able to get a hold of comic books and read them. So just remember that I've provided those resources for you. You could totally go to those websites like Comixology was talked about. Marvel and DC's websites provide free comic books as well. And explore, try to see what you're into, see what you think you'd like and are be entertained by. So with that, just a reminder that Comic Book Club is about reading and creating comic books, right? So if you're still interested, use any of this time. You can pause this video, go into some designing of comic books yourself on blank paper, using art supplies, go to the websites that I've talked about. In case you've forgotten how to get to those, let me just go ahead and show you again. It is, it is on, let me just scroll to the end because I know it might be easier that way. It's right here. So if I type in tinyurl.com/breakthrough Denver BKD comic book club, it'll take you to the website that I'm housing all the resources that I've been talking about in these lessons. So it has the videos of me going through each of these lessons. It has the PowerPoints that you can click on and then go and re-look over the PowerPoints or read the articles that I'm talking about. There's the masterclass on how to be a comic book artist, and a comic book artist shows you how to create those comics. And then also what I think is probably one of the more important resources that I've shown you so far. I won't be able to do this because right now it's under publishing. So let me just show you what it will look like to you. Okay, right? Is the free online resource handout. This is, I've gone ahead and collected all the major websites that give out free comics that you can find digitally. Just click on the link, explore the website, look for free comic books on that website, and read. Just enjoy that time, right? I'm not going to force you to read any one thing. You find something that's something you're interested in, something, of course, that your parents would be fine with you reading, of course, right? And you just explore it. That's just what the Comic Book Club is about. So with that, let's go ahead and go to the next stage. So I've already provided you with that masterclass on how to create your own comic book drawings, but I also wanted to slow down a little bit and give you some more tips because I've said that that's part of Comic Book Club. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to select a few videos in my PowerPoint to slow down on and have you watch. And if you're interested in watching the others, feel free to access the PowerPoint just like I showed you, and you can just watch those on your own time, right? So the first one that I thought might be really helpful for you is tips for beginning artists.
Hey guys, my name is Seyfrieden, and this is a little different. Hope you like it either way. So you wanted to be an artist, an animator if you wanted to be specific, but an artist in general. Alright, so knowing how to draw isn't really a superpower. I'd like it to be, but it's not. You don't just wake up from being bit by the drawing spider and just one day, out of nowhere, you start drawing like Da Vinci. Sorry, but that's just not how it works. 8 tips for beginner artists/animators. Community. Let's be real, this is a sponsorship, but it's still an actual advice. Regardless, one of the biggest, most important things that artists don't really talk about is finding a community. A place where you can post your art, get feedback, start a small following, a place where you can talk to other artists that like similar things that you do. Amino is actually just that place. If you're a beginning artist and you want a place where you can post your art, Amino is one of the best places to start off at. They have so many different communities, from My Hero Academia to other animators like Wolfichu and Tony B. Toons. They just have so many communities that you might actually find interesting. With that said, there's now an official CypherDen Amino. There you can post CypherDen fan art that you'd like me to see, and I can actually comment back to. I originally wanted to start doing storytime animations because I wanted you guys to get to know me a little bit more. And it's been a little bit difficult since the channel has been growing at such a fast pace. So I decided to build a community on Amino where we can talk, chat, and where I could post sneak peeks and previews. There you can give me advice and tell me that's a really bad idea, then do not do that. Pretty much I wanted to have an open and better communication with you guys when it comes to creating content. With all that being said, to help you guys get started in your path of being a super cool artist, the lovely people at Amino are hooking us up with a tablet giveaway. All you have to do is make sure you're a part of the official CypherDen Amino and post a fan art of yours truly. I'll pick some of my favorite fan arts and you guys can vote on Amino on who you think should win the giveaway. I'm also going to try my best to respond to as many messages as possible. Draw every day. Every artist that you'll ever ask will tell you practice or draw every day. And it's super generic, yeah, but it's true. You can't just know how to draw a human face without having to draw it a couple of times. Just like everything else in life, it's something you work on. Practice and repetition is something you'll have to work on daily. Draw every day and you'll see improvements in how you look at life and how you draw. This is also how you end up developing your own art style, drawing every single day. You know how people only post the best parts of their lives on Instagram? Most artists only post their best art online. You don't get to see the back end. Terrible sketches, countless references, the redos, the hours spent. You don't get to see that. You just see the final art. And you're thinking, oh, everything they draw must be amazing. That's not true at all. A lot of artists have towers of sketchbook of just studies and crappy drawings that they've never shown anyone. And that's completely fine. A sketchbook is usually just for you. A place where you could unwind and draw to your heart's content. And it doesn't have to be perfect all the time. Draw every day, drawing things that you like and even things you don't like. Usually you just don't like to draw certain things because chances are you don't know how to draw them very well. Drawing things that you don't like helps you grow into a well-rounded artist. You can't just say, oh hey, I'm a professional artist. All I know how to draw are eyeballs. That's all. Please hire me. Study artists that you like. There's a reason why you like a certain artist and why they appeal to you. They're doing something right and you like it. You can study how to use their colors, pose their characters, use composition. I've read somewhere that you're a mosaic of all the different things that you like. So make sure you look at different artists too. You don't want to be just another carbon copy of another artist. That's not going to get you anywhere. Personally, I love watching other artists do speed paints or speed drawings because I can learn how to get to the final piece. You can also pick up on their techniques and process. On that note, watch tutorials. You can learn so much online nowadays. Tutorials are my favorite thing in the whole wide world. There's so many artists that like to share the knowledge they know and turn it into a free tutorial. All you have to do is watch and learn. Onion Skin, Cycra, and Draw with Jazza are great examples for tutorial channels. In all honesty, you can learn how to animate just by watching tutorials. I went to an art school and took animation courses, but the way I'm animating now, I learned all on my own just by watching tutorials. I started watching a channel about film effects called Film Riot all the way back when, and they had tutorials. I started learning After Effects from their videos, and I was just hooked. But remember, you can watch as many tutorials as possible, but if you're not trying it and practicing it on your own, nothing's going to happen. Think about it. Just because you watch videos late at night of people working out doesn't mean you're losing weight from that burger that you just ate 5 minutes ago. Just saying. References. References are very important. You can't expect to know how to draw everything from the top of your head. Searching up an image and using it as quote-unquote reference is not cheating. Looking up clothes that you're going to put on your character is not cheating. You don't have to make up everything that you draw. Reference is very, 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 very important to making your character or your world look believable. It's
It's not wrong to use references at all. Professional artists use it all the time. Some new artists, for some reason, believe otherwise, but they're also the same people with crappy art and characters with messed up proportions. Don't listen to them. References are important. That's why there's website upon website just for references. Tracing and just hardcore copying a design and calling it your own, on the other hand, is a whole different story. Just because you change the hair color doesn't make it your character. Remember that. It's a different story, but I still have to point it out. Patience. Let's face it, let's be real. You're not going to be a super awesome artist overnight. You're going to have to work on it again and again and again. Not everything you're going to make is going to be amazing. It just doesn't work like that. You have to be patient. It takes time, but you have to keep drawing and animating. Even if you come home from work or school butt tired, you have to pick up that pencil, that pen, whatever, and you have to make something. Be patient, be dedicated. Don't be afraid to start. A lot of people tell me that they want to be an artist. Eventually, they want to make videos or do YouTube. They want to get into drawing or animating, but it's always in the future. When I'm old enough, or when I have free time, or when I get better at drawing. Let me tell you this. No one's going to wait for you. The more you wait, the more you're postponing it. The more time you're wasting doing absolutely nothing. Get that ball rolling. Get started. Pick up a pen. Start drawing. Stop making excuses. It's not going to be amazing at first, but you work on it. Not a lot of people are going to see your art at first, but you still have to start. Just whatever you do, don't be afraid. Last but not least, do it because you love it. If you're doing it for YouTube, do it because you love it. Don't do it for the fame or the money. If the fame and the money comes along, then that's awesome. But do it for the fact that you enjoy making content, because it's something that you like and you love. I enjoy making YouTube videos because I like making people laugh and smile, and it's actually something I love to do. Hope that helped you guys out a little. I'm not Da Vinci, but those are the best advice that I can give personally. Thanks again to Amino for being so awesome and sponsoring this video. Don't forget, we still have a giveaway, so make sure you send us fan art at Amino.
Okay. So I thought that was a great starter for getting into animation, getting into drawing. I know she talked a little bit about After Effects. That's really just if you're making video online. But I think a lot of what she was saying for suggestions on how to really build those strong foundational skills still apply. There's a video on how to draw eyes specifically. It goes through all the different techniques. I am not going to play this one, but I am going to provide you with the video in the PowerPoint. So if you want to watch it on your own, feel free to do so. There is one on how to draw human figures and like how do you draw bodies. I'm also not going to slow down on this one, but if you want to watch it, it is in the PowerPoint. This is drawing fundamentals. Very great video on just how do you do motion, how do you do different proportions and body styles, how do you do different parts of the body. Again, available on the PowerPoint. Okay, I think this is the one. Yep, this is the last one that we're going to show today.
Hi, my name is Christopher Hart. I'm a cartoonist and author of many books. How to draw cartoons, manga, figure drawing, animals, tons of stuff. I'm glad you're visiting me today at my YouTube, and I'd like to show you how to draw a type of character I really enjoy, and that's a cartoon genius, a kid who's a genius. So I'm going to just sketch him in first, and then we'll darken it in. And I start with a very big head, a vertical oval. That's because he's got so much brains that we have to make room for them. I'll give a little kind of rectangular body underneath, very slight, like so. And I'll divide that in half so that he's wearing shorts. And we'll bring really skinny legs down together, right down the center. Here's the center line of the whole character, the head and the body. I'll taper those legs down a little bit, like so, down to, I'll give him some socks, straight line across, and some shoes. Definitely not sneakers, because he has no athletic ability. We're using stereotypes here, what we think a genius might be. I think Albert Einstein set the mold. Albert Einstein. Great guy. I really love his work. Well, it's all relative.
Before I go any further, after that cheesy joke, I will say this. If you need to, what I do when I'm doing drawings like this is sometimes when they go too fast, you can always rewind the video so that way you can go at the pace that helps you to be successful in the drawing. You can also pause the video whenever you feel like it so that way you are able to go ahead and follow along. A lot of times artists, because they're better than I am, go too fast for me. And so I stop the video or I even just back up a little bit so I can do the same part of the video over and over again. Okay, let's keep going.
Sorry. I should do this whole video over again because of that terrible joke. Okay, so there we go. We have a lot of them, all right? And we'll also give him a little collar here. And because he's already a nerd, which is nice, I'm just going to shade this in a bit. And because he's very slight and doesn't pose with a lot of authority, we'll put his hands behind his back. I'm going to slenderize this a little bit like that. Make that slightly concave so that we take away any width to the shoulders. We'll give him oversized sleeves. Be swimming in his clothing, then it makes him look even more slight. So, you know, we have to caricature not just the face, but the clothes and the pose. I didn't mean to rhyme that. I did not mean to rhyme that. Don't give me any credit for that. All right, so we're going to now make kind of noodly arms. I should put the hands in the pockets. And the reason the arms are noodly is because we want to make it look like, you know, he's got absolutely no muscle tone. Now let's go with the face. I'll give a few buttons down. Okay, we'll start with the nose, the bridge of the nose really small down here, very pointy. And we're going to give him gigantic glasses. I want to make them round, coming just off the head. I'll darken these in a minute. Just touching the parameter of the head or just a little beyond it. Let's not go a little beyond it, okay? That should be fun. And we'll give him a little small smile, a little tiny smile. And we're going to make know-it-all type of eyes, which are like so. Just simple, closed eyes. Each one is the shape of a U, like that. And we'll give him little eyebrows, but inside the glasses. Let's connect those glasses like so, and now we'll darken that in. You give me a minute, hang with me. He's got to have some thickness on the rims. Okay, now the other one. You can use a template if you want to make the circles perfectly circular, but you know, it doesn't really matter. It may matter in animation. If you're animating the character, you want to always be consistent, but for our purposes, we can do this and really everyone will be fine with it. All right, so he's a real know-it-all. Let's bring the face down into the collar. Don't you just hate him? I mean, this kind of kid. Teacher, you forgot to give us homework. I still have resentment toward that person all these years later. Okay, so let's give a part on the side like this. I'm going to erase this, by the way. Get this out of here. And now we'll give him a lot of curly hair, but with big bumps, not small. We don't want to be subtle. This is a cartoon. And in cartoons, subtlety isn't always an advantage. You really have to shout it. So let's make his hair look really curly like this. Darken that in a little more. bring this part out, right, the shirt, into the shoulders, and I can erase the top here. Let's quickly do this just to give it some tone. And a line here for the ground. Notice that it doesn't go across the socks. Sock line is above it. Otherwise, it'll give the illusion that it's cutting through the legs. All right, so there is your cookie crazy genius. And hope you like it. Thank you for visiting me. And I have new videos uploaded each week. I hope you subscribe. Bye-bye.
So if you're looking for a video that does more instead of the cartoon-like drawing, here's a video on how to do action figure-like drawings, like superheroes, things like that. I'm not going to show this one just for the sake of time, but again, videos are available in the PowerPoint, which is located on the Google site. All right. So this is my last video on Comic Book Club. What I wanted to do was give you some resources around the community here in Denver. The great thing about living in Denver is we have a very strong comic book community, right? For instance, one convention when people come together to share comic books, to buy, to learn about new ones, is called the Independent Comic Expo. That is just basically for smaller comic book publishers, people that make, you know, they're not Marvel, they're not DC, but they're still comic book makers, they're just much smaller. Their website's called dinkdenver.com, right? And that will give you just a variety of different independent comic book creators that are in the area. There's a lot of great stuff from them. As that's loading up, I'll talk about the other two. Denver Pop Culture Con is the Denver's premier comic book convention. They changed their name a couple of years back from Comic-Con to Pop Culture Con because it's become so much more than just comic books. It's become movies, TV, all of the above. So that is just all the different cool things. I work with them closely because they do a lot of classroom things, right? And so Pop Culture Classroom is really cool. And so if you're interested, this gives you all the information about Denver Pop Culture Con. Here's Dink, right? And all the independent comics. And then Mile High Comics is one of the largest comic book stores in the world, right? And it's right here in Denver. So it's basically a warehouse full of in-person comics. You can order them and they'll ship them to you. Right now the store is closed, I think, for in-person visits, but when things get back to normal, I would suggest going to visit because it is such a great place to go find comics. Sometimes I just go and explore because there's so many comics that they have, and there are things that I've never read before. So Mile High Comics is a great opportunity for you. Okay, we've reached the end of today's lesson. Thank you guys for going through those with me. Hope you found them educational. You have 3 different options, as always, for how you want to show what you learned. So option 1, answering in a Google document, answer the following question. Predict what you think the future of comics will look like, and why do you think that? You know, a lot of the beginning of this lesson was talking about where comics are and kind of the challenges they're facing. What do you think comics will look like in the future? Write at least 2 paragraphs. Then once you're done with the Google Doc, please email it to breakthroughelectives@gmail.com. If you don't want to do that one, you can go with option 2. Option 2 is to read a comic from the list of comics and write a 2-paragraph summary and review. What was it about? What did you like about it? And what would you have changed? As a reminder, to get to those comics, you would just go to the website that I created. The handout gives you all the different places you can find free comics for you to look at and read. Option 3, last option, is to create your own comic book drawing. You have now seen multiple videos on how to draw comics. You can look back at those or find some new ones on YouTube. You can either draw by hand using paper and pen, old school, or you can use any of those websites that I showed you in lesson 1 that give you the option to actually design it on the computer. Either way is fine with me. All I ask you to do is make sure to take a picture of that and send it to breakthroughelectives@gmail.com. As always, any one of those options would be fine as long as you submit it. And once you submit it, you will receive breakthrough points for doing the work. I hope that you found this fun and educational. I love talking about comics. So feel free to send me an email if you want to talk to me more about comic books. If you're looking for suggestions, if you want to even share what comic books that you're reading right now, I would love to hear that. The URL to get to the Comic Book Club webpage is tinyurl.com BKD or /BKD Comic Book Club. That'll get you to this site on comic books. And if you'd like to reach out to me, just remember that my email address is the same as my name, tom.ponce@gmail.com. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the selective. Feel free to watch any of these videos or use any of these resources as many times as you'd like, and go on and get out there and read the comics that you're interested in reading. Take care, guys. Talk to you later.